Hi, my name's Rob Goddard, and I'm joined today by my friend and business connection, Adam Shaw. Adam, a few
Hi,
words of
Rob.
hello from you, an intro.
I met Rob many moons ago when I'd made a jump just after I'd made a jump from nursing into business, and I'd absolutely no idea what I was doing in the business world. But when I ran into you, Rob, it was the first time that I thought I'd met a kindred soul, and ended up having a great conversation. It was nothing to do with business at all.
Yeah, it was mutual, and I guess we're talking today about mental health, something that us blokes tend not to do we?
Well, you just said a very interesting thing, Rob. I mean, we had a little chat before we started recording here, and I think what you said really highlights the problem. What was it? Do you even remember what you told me?
No, it's my advancing Alzheimer's. It's
Exactly.
old age. I'm nearly 60.
Alzheimer's is a real problem in mental health. But what you said was really, what did I find is the big problem in the mental health, especially with us guys. I mean, we're actually the target audience of where all the lunacy starts. And it is that belief of maybe our generation that grew up thinking, well, it's up to me to deal with it on my own.
Yeah.
Mental health is for lightweights was almost the sort of sentiment I got out of talking to you. And isn't that where so many problems begin?
Well, yeah. Look, the statistics are clear. Men are three times more likely to commit suicide than women. 800,000 people a year take their own lives on this planet. And people under 50, men under 50, are the most exposed group. It's the most common cause of death of people under 50 is suicide. It isn't a disease.
Yeah.
And yet, particularly with us guys, we just don't talk about mental health and mental health related issues. So we're going to put that to right today between us, as two
Absolutely.
kindred spirits. And I know I've said to you that by the in by the time I got to 45 years of age, I'd had a successful corporate career. I was married, had some money, a lot of success, and I really felt made of granite. And I didn't really give mental health uh, any space really in my thinking. And in fact, I thought that anyone that suffered from mental health was just weak. And I believed that for most, or for many, many years, until I reached the age of 45 and my life collapsed. Lost my marriage, my job, and my children. And it hit me like a steam train. And I went into what became a 4 or 5 year depression. And during that time, I tried to take my own life on the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. So I was wrong about mental health. In fact, any of us are susceptible to being struck down with, you just need the wrong things to happen at the wrong time. And none of us are made of granite. And I know you come from a nursing and mental health background, Adam. So perhaps you could just share a few thoughts there and experiences that you've had over the years in that world.
Well, your experience is very common, Robin. It's like that thing that it's not until you talk about it that you realize that you're not the only one, or it's not just you. There's actually people, and not only that, I'm sure you're finding now that there's such a relief when you're honest and vulnerable about your own mental health issues, because you then give other people permission to talk about theirs. It
Right.
stops being normal to hold it in, and just sharing, and somebody that offers people that space to share. I mean, it's invaluable. I mean, my parents were both psychiatric nurses. My dad
Right.
was Irish,
Right.
and he'd very much the same sense of humor that we have when we talk about mental health, because a lot of his close friends, he had six very close friends during his nurse training years, during his psychiatric years, and three of them committed suicide.
Wow.
Psychiatric nurses,
Wow.
are the most at risk, because they're the ones that meant to have all the answers.
Yeah. And was that down to the pressure of the job for those three people?
Well, it's like you said, Rob, with any mental health issue, it's about a perfect storm. We've all
Right.
got a certain level of resilience, and we've all got certain factors that some are universal, some are personal, some are anything. So, in one of their cases, in a very short period of time, he found out that he split up from a relationship that he'd been in for 10 years. That's certainly a major factor that plays. It's like undercurrents in a stream. At the top, you might see it looks very calm on the top of the Thames. You've got like 3 riptides underneath that are going to drag you to your death. It's what you don't see below the surface. And that really describes mental health, because if you lose somebody in your life, you might then, a parent might die, or something really serious might go wrong with a family relative. Someone might hurt you or betray you or do something terrible, when it's a close family relative. That's always a contributing force. So that's another undercurrent. And it's like pushing down a spring. It's not that, they were mentally ill. They allowed it to happen because it was a perfect storm. When we're hit by multiple forces at multiple times, no one's a rock. And you've just pointed this out. And I think everybody at one stage in their life is going to have that perfect storm. And the tipping point for the first guy to go was then he was diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
Now, he might have been able to fight that if that had been the only thing going on in his life at the time. But it happened at the wrong time. And, I guess add that to the belief, if you're a psychiatric nurse, that you're the one that's meant to have all the answers. You're the one that's meant to be dealing with the mentally ill. The stigma of actually talking about this stuff, it could cost him his job.
Yeah.
At what stage do you go to the other side of the psychiatric divide, and then it costs you your livelihood and money as well? The pressure of that. So, I mean, it's always a perfect storm.
And from your experience, Adam, when someone is struggling with life, seriously struggling, and it's affecting their mental health, I know people who are listening to this, are there any ways that you found over the years that have really helped open up a conversation?
I've found, Rob, that the thing that works for me, I'm a little bit risque in my first contact conversations. I will throw things into conversations that give people an opportunity to bite or to see where they lead. I might talk about, we should probably, it depends what drugs they're on. And I can see by the reaction, how they react to something like that. Or I throw out little
Right.
bite-sized chunks to see who bites at what. And this is something I never actually thought about until recently, when I thought, well, why is it that people open up to me?
So,
Why am I able to get the trust of people quite early? And it is because I will tell stuff about myself that isn't 100% right. I'm never trying to be that perfect human being.
right. So you're authentic and real with them
Yeah.
rather than playing a role.
And you've nailed it. If I was to put it in one word,
Right.
it's about authenticity. If you
Right.
show up as yourself, it allows people to be themselves.
Would you ever, I mean, this is a slightly charged question, I guess, but would you ever, if you detected that they were seriously falling and maybe in danger of taking their own life, would you raise that with them? Would you
Yeah,
ask them outright
I've done
rather than
it.
skirt around it?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
would.
It's happened before, Rob. I mean, one thing that happened during my nursing days, and it only has to happen to you once, and it changes the way that you look at the world. And I always remember when I was a staff nurse, there was a care assistant. I remember her name was Ophelia. She was one of the care assistants, and she was quite socially awkward.
Hmm.
And one day she came and asked me if I'd go for a break with her. And for me, it was a case of, at the time, I mean, completely honestly, I thought, I want to enjoy my break. I don't really want to get drained by that. That's not my idea of fun. But you know what? I bit the bullet and I went to break with her. And I finished that break thinking I need another break now before I go back to the ward. And
Wow.
it was just very, you know, at the time I was in my mid-20s. I didn't have the same awareness or skills that I did then. And I just, you know, that was enough. I didn't particularly ever want to go to break with her again.
Yeah,
And
I bet you use humor though as well, because you're a funny guy.
well, humor, that's a separate topic. But with this girl in particular, you know, 3 months later, it was Christmas, Rob. And I came in, I worked Christmas evening. I did a night shift. And our ward manager was there. She was in absolute pieces. I've never seen. One of the loveliest women I've ever met. She couldn't even move, tears rolling down her face. She got a letter that had been written to her by this care assistant, pretty much saying, you know, by the time you get this, I'll already be dead. There's
Wow.
nothing worth to live for. And sure enough, the ward manager had phoned the police. They'd gone round to her house and found her hanging in the stairwell. And, you know, it does affect you. You know, there's always this, what could I have done more?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that's so true, because I know in my own experience, um, I I carried on. I was having regular daily suicide, several times a day, suicidal thoughts. I was looking up painless ways of killing myself. And by the way, there isn't. And in fact, even if you die quickly, the pain that you leave behind with your family and friends is for the rest of their lives as well. So
Yeah,
the pain doesn't go away. And there were a couple of people who were close to me that sensed all was not right in my world, even though I was a pretty good actor and putting on a veneer. Um, but no one actually challenged me, and I'd challenge in the right way. And if they had, I would have spoken up about the true
yeah,
depth that I'd fallen into, but no one did. There was one friend of mine, Alex, and in fact, he came out to Dubai after my thwarted suicide attempt, and he didn't know the extent of it, but he came out because he was a friend, and I managed to open up. He come over with specific purpose to Dubai, and that was really therapeutic in the best sense of the word, best sense of the word, for 4 days. And it's really just having someone you trust and know who cares, that asks questions and doesn't come up with instant solutions. So I found that very, very helpful, and humor as well, because even though I did try to take my own life, we were still having a laugh together.
yeah.
It's quite strange, isn't it? You could, different emotions you might think would counteract each other, but they all happened at the same time.
Well, it's a bit like a pressure release. I was actually speaking to a stand-up comedian once about this. You know, what's the essence of good stand-up comedy? You make people so uncomfortable that it's like, oh, they don't know where to look. And then
Right.
you sort of flip it and it's a release. You release it. And I think when you're in that zone, you find that. I mean, I found it by accident, Rob. I remember as a student nurse one day, I was, what happened, my training, we were Project 2000, and traditional nurse training, you were thrown in the deep end pretty much from the first month that you started training. So by the time you reach year 2, you're pretty good level of experience on the ward. And then they changed the whole training schedule and decided that the new nurses, super nurses, they called it. It was so bad. I mean, it backfired so badly on us. Super
As
nurse.
superheroes.
So they, you know, this was a new breed of super nurse. We were going to be far more better educated. And what that actually meant was that we got twice the credits for our training because we were well educated, but we had
Right.
half the experience. So we were going in at year 2 with no experience, and the old staff, you can imagine how pissed off they were that we were super nurses that didn't have a bloody clue what we were doing. And I was wandering around the ward lost. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have the skills. So what I found myself doing, just out of sheer awkwardness, was sitting on patients' beds and speaking to them.
Okay.
And I remember one guy came in, he was 40 years old, this guy, and he'd had some stomach pain, but he was a builder, you know, old school geezer, Cockney geezer builder, built
Nothing
like,
wrong with Cockneys.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, really fun. You know, me and him just really hit it off
Yeah.
straight away. I love Cockneys. And, you know, we were just having a load of banter, went straight into football. Of course, I found football was quite a common uniting thing because I could get people talking about other stuff on the ward. You know, if someone was feeling sorry for themselves and I
Yeah.
found out they're a Tottenham fan, I go, well, no wonder you're sick. We don't do that with any club, you know. I changed the energy dynamic of it, but I found out this guy supported Leyton Orient, and you know, at the time they were bottom of the third division, you know, well, the fourth division, like if you count the Premiership. They looked like they were about to exit the Football League. They were about 10 points behind the next team above them, and you know, so we'd been bantering about that for a few days. And I came in one day and I sat down for the handover, and they said, you know, this guy's just had his tests back, and they found that, you know, he's got cancer and it's inoperable. And what he'd done, he'd been on a building site, he'd got the pain, but he wanted to finish the job. So he'd worked for 2 weeks beyond the pain and pushed himself through the barrier. And him, old school Cockney geezer, you know, tough as nails, builder, cost him his life to finish that job. Yeah. And he'd only just found it out that day. And nobody knew what anything to say to him, least of all me. And I'd no experience, no training in counselling or grief counselling or anything. You know, I just awkwardness and feeling that I wasn't a very good nurse. And I remember going and sitting on his bed and saying, look, Steve, I really don't know what to say. I'm just so sorry. And there was this silence, and I just sat there with him. It probably about a minute. It felt like an eternity, but I was just holding the space for him. And eventually he was looking away. He turned around to me and he said, have I got any hope? And you know, the first thing that came to me, it just popped into my head, and I thought, I've got to say, I felt compelled to say it. I said, well, look at it this way, Steve. I said, you've got more hope than Leyton Orient have of staying in the league this season. And the two of us were just belly laughing on the side of the bed. So much so that my mentor, my teacher, my facilitator, you know, the senior nurse on the ward, she marched across the ward and she told me to get in the office quickly. And I got pulled up for inappropriate laughter.
But do you know that is a fantastic and it's heartwarming story there. That must have helped in that moment. That naturalness and that humour must have helped him. My mum died of cancer in 1992, but I can remember the 9 months between diagnosis and when she died. I remember her saying to me, we used to spend some time together, I just want normal life. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I just want to enjoy what time I've got left. And I didn't, until I got older, I didn't really understand the extent of that. But I've found that humour and just being natural is one of the best tonics. You may get kicked out of nursing. Patch Adams did, didn't he? You seen the film Patch Adams?
I loved it. Patch Adams was therapy for me. It was like somebody is finally, you know, in the medical profession speaking.
For anybody that hasn't seen Patch Adams, do get it on Amazon. Get the DVD. Show how old I am. I could have said Betamax. But he was a revolutionary, a renegade doctor that went his own way because of the establishment, how he saw the establishment stifling relationship with patients and just being authentic. So your story just reminds me. I knew that was going. As a long-suffering Arsenal supporter, I thought you were going to line up Leyton Orient. It would have been even better if he'd been a Tottenham supporter.
It would have been. It'd have been the final kick in the balls, wouldn't it? But to take that story to one step further, I mean, it just felt wrong for me, Rob. So my next research project was on the place of humour in medicine. I researched it. And when I finished my research study, I went up to the nurse that had brought me in for inappropriate humor. I put my assignment, which got an A. It got the top grade, I popped it on the desk and said, I just want to thank you because you gave me the topic for my last research study, and I've just got an A, and I thought you might want to appreciate having a read. Whether she ever read it or whatever, I'm not quite sure what happened with that copied assignment.
I didn't know about that in your background. I mean, that's really interesting, isn't it? So that's what you moved into.
Well, I was always curious. It's like
Mm.
anything, Rob. You know, all the assignments that we had to do of subjects that weren't interesting to me, I didn't do particularly well in because I'd no interest in them. But those interactions that we're talking about now, and at the time, you have to take this back to the mid 90s. It was even worse about people not talking about this stuff. You know, especially stigma. I mean, that was back in the day where it weren't psychiatric hospitals; they were lunatic asylums.
Yes. Yeah.
And they weren't psychiatric patients, or nutters. You know, lunatics.
Yeah.
You know, you go to a shrink, you're nuts. You know, you've lost the plot. And this is just professional people that allow you to talk about, you know, the stuff that's going on in your world. You know, a good friend could do that for you, but you know, you don't talk about that. It's like it's a different generation, wasn't it?
It is, and times moved on. Now, even the title of this talk is always "Look on the Bright Side of Life." So, I mean, just thinking about today, I mean, obviously, around the world, there's a lot of people that are concerned and worried about the future, their family, their businesses, their jobs. What place do you think that thinking about looking on the brighter side of life has with people today? What would be your message?
Well, my message, you actually nailed it earlier, Rob. All I'm going to do is build on a very, very good point that you've already brought up. I've worked with the terminally ill. I've worked with people at their very worst. And the one thing that's recurrent when you actually speak to them and you listen to what they have to say, there seems to be this societal belief that if someone's really sick, you can't go in and have fun or treat them normally. And that's how you know that you're really in trouble, when all the people, they feel awkward around you. And what I specialized in was going in and, you know, taking the piss, having a laugh, finding a reason to, you know, treat them normally. Or it's like, oh, don't be such, you know, we're having another bloody miserable day, you know, click out, get over you.
But finding a connection with them,
yeah,
human connection.
And it really is. I mean, it's finding, you know, treating them as though you would do if they weren't terminally ill, if they didn't have, you know, serious illness. You know, that's what people tend to crave. It's just that degree of being treated like a human being and not, you know, somebody that's really sick. Oh, you can't say that. You can't laugh. Stop laughing. You know, don't laugh. She's sick. Like she's not going to want laughing, you know, if you're terminally ill or you've got like serious health condition. Ban laughter. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, what practical tips would you share with people about if they're feeling really under pressure and struggling right now? How can they find that release?
Well, trust is the currency, and most people have got a good friend. But you don't just want a good friend that's going to give you advice. You know, if you're that good friend, just shut up and listen without judgment. You know, that's the one thing that I did. I mean, I honestly, by, I suppose, sheer accident, Rob, you know, I felt like a bit of a fraud during my nurse training years. I thought I shouldn't be here. I'm not qualified. And so I was very non-judgmental. Not only that, but my parents were both psychiatric nurses. We grew up within the grounds of a psychiatric hospital. So having judgment in that environment wasn't going to get me anywhere. In fact, my benchmark of normal was way lower than most people. So, you know, not being judgmental or having a lesser degree of need to judge people, you know, because I felt like I was a lunatic myself.
Right.
So,
well, there is a guy, I saw him on YouTube. Oh, he did a TED talk. He's quite prolific. He's like a Louis Theroux. He's an investigator, and he did his TED talk was about his stories with people in prison that were psychotic. and he came away this chap came away with the impression that we're all psychotic to one degree or another. We're all in a state. Depends where we are on that spectrum. There is no normal.
Well, I've always said that for years, Rob, but you mentioned psychosis. I've got a very good friend who's a psychiatric nurse, and he's been both sides of the psychiatric divide, which is why he's such a fabulous nurse. You know, he studied holistic psychotherapy. He had the residents of the acute ward doing yoga in the mornings. I mean, he really is breaking boundaries in psychiatry. But he told me this wonderful story. It's wonderful. Even in the most lunatic places, you can get like the funniest stories or the most quirky things. There was a psychotic patient dying, and this is over in the west of Ireland. And they bring in the priest, and you know the priest comes in, and how do they deal with death? The priest goes up to them and looks at this psychotic patient who wasn't saying much, and he said, "Do you renounce the devil and all of his sin?" And and my friend Norm said this guy's eyes just bulged a little bit. They just went like, he didn't say anything, just eyes bulged. He's on his deathbed, ready to die. And the priest looks at my friend Norman, and then he looks back at this thing, and he thought he obviously didn't hear me, and he goes a bit closer. "Do you renounce the devil and all of his sin?" And the guy's eyes are like, but he hasn't said anything. So the priest looks back at my friend Norm, who's standing at the door there, wondering, you know, where this is all going. So the priest goes really close and says quite loud, you know, "Do you renounce the devil and all of his sin?" And my friend Norman, and the way he says it, I mean, it loses translation when I say it because he's got the Irish accent. He said that the patient, you know, he's psychotic, had just grabbed his arm and like a vice, he's on his deathbed, and he says, "It's a bit late to be making enemies." These little gems of comedy in most serious situations. And I mean, to have that, it's not just a life skill, it's a survival skill, Rob.
Yeah.
You know, it's more than just a good skill to have. You know, as a nurse, especially in psychiatry, I didn't train in psychiatry, but my dad did. And there was a high fallout of suicide there. And I would put the difference that makes a difference in that realm is the bright side of life. If you're able to crack a joke from the most awful situations, and he grew up on the streets of Belfast, so, and he used to party with Catholics and Protestants. So, you know, my dad was like taking risks over Belfast. I mean, if he didn't have a sense of humor, he'd have never got by. And I think it is that the more serious your life circumstances, the more serious your condition, the more important it is to have a sense of humor.
Yeah, I totally concur with you. It somehow puts things more in perspective, because when you're going through a depression, you're not thinking rationally. I mean, I don't understand the medical side. You do. I don't. I've just experienced it, and your thinking isn't rational. It's irrational quite often. Just having that bit of levity and humor with someone you know and trust and cares about you, and not giving instant solutions, can make the difference. And it did in my life with Alex. In fact, I wrote a book about it. I always like a good plug.
It's got to be done. It's a great you know, story, Rob. Your story.
Yeah, as you can see, I didn't get arrested by the authorities. That's out in Dubai.
Yeah.
You see a little bush there. That is me. You can tell it's me. I've got blue on. In fact, I think it's the same T-shirt. But the thing is, it's all barren, isn't it? Apart from the little outcrop of growth. But on the back cover, there's an oasis. I think you can see there.
Yeah.
So actually, there is an oasis in life. It may not be in view, but there are little signs of life. And I found that trying to look for something that lifted my spirits in the day helped me from during the whole process of depression and battling for 4 or 5 years, finding little things that just lifted my spirit a bit. And that's usually through someone else. and often through humor and friendship. And that's my encouragement really to people listening to this, is that if you're struggling right now, is to have a proper conversation and a chat with someone that you trust, whoever that person is, whether it's a family or friend. Just one person can make a huge difference, and that happened to me.
Mm.
And if you haven't got anyone and you want someone that understands, can empathize, and can help you reverse that fall, then perhaps have a chat with you, Adam. Yeah, because you're involved with the coaching and counselling of people, aren't you? Currently.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's been a new venture. Well, I say a new venture, Rob. I mean, I left nursing for whistleblowing. I may as well have tattooed a target on my head in the end, and came into business with no business skills at all. So I bumbled my way around, and I've done a few things. As you know, we met through funding. We met through, I was training people how to pitch, present. I've done a
That's
lot
right.
of different things, worn a lot of different hats. But one thing that COVID has really brought out is, the amount of trust I must have built up, because so many people were phoning me and telling me, what was going on in their world, their mental health stuff, their sleep problems, their weight problems, all related to mental health issues. And I realized, what am I doing? This is my calling. This is what I was meant to do. And the world is never going to need this service more than it does at the
Yeah.
moment, with the world in chaos. And it really is. I've been saying for years, we live in a lunatic asylum. Growing up in a psychiatric hospital, it's actually the safest place I've ever been.
And your parents both came from mental health industry, so you're very much engrossed.
And not only that, I mean, I always say about the patients, here's a little one for you, Rob. As I grew up, because we lived in the grounds of a psychiatric hospital, when I went to school, I was a lunatic and we were on day release, according to the other kids. So there's a lot of stigma that went with
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Except we'd real lunatics at our school. And because they thought I was a lunatic, they used to leave me alone. So that label actually worked in my advantage. But because my parents were fairly mad as well, I always said about psychiatry, at least the patients knew which side of the psychiatric line they were supposed to be on. And that's why I think there's quite high suicide in psychiatry. Um, I used to go up and visit my dad on the ward, and there was a patient in there, and I got more sense out of him than anyone else. I'd like a mentor who was officially a lunatic. So I was actually mentored by the inmates in an asylum growing up. True story. And it wasn't until at least 10 years after I left home that I was speaking to my dad one day, and he told me about this patient, Mitch. I was like, what was he in for, Dad? This guy worked for British intelligence, Secret Service. And he was a double agent during the Second World War. I mean, imagine what he must have been through.
yeah.
And the reason he was in is because one day his wife, he thought, was seeing someone else, and he picked a gun up and shot her.
Wow,
That's why he was in a psychiatric
wow.
hospital. But I'll tell you what, I got more sense out of this guy, because I think once you're diagnosed as a psychiatric patient or a lunatic, as it was back then, there's a freedom that goes with that. There's just the ability to be yourself and authenticity that goes with it, where you stop caring. Society's labelled you anyway as a nutter,
So you don't have to
so
pretend.
might as well be myself now.
So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way of getting in touch?
Well, go to my website, adamshaw.co, or look me up on LinkedIn, Adam Shaw. And if you type in Adam Shaw, the heart guy, because there's a lot of Adam Shaws, so that was the only way I could sort of distinguish.
You're not related to Patch Adams, are you? Because there's Patch Adams and Adam
Who
Shaw.
knows? Well, I think we could all be interrelated here, Rob. From previous lives and doing other stuff. So yeah, who knows? I feel a lot of resonance with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
interestingly, I know it from my angle, but it fascinates me with yours, because we used to see quite a lot of people that has either killed themselves or parasuicides, calls for help, and a lot of those go wrong. And from your perspective, when you were at the height of going through your struggles, what do you think was the biggest barrier that stopped you from getting help?
shame. particularly having built a career in business, what other people would think,
Yeah.
particularly in business. And that was the biggest single barrier. I struggled on inside my head, pretending to the outside world and bumbling along the bottom, and until the bottom then disappeared again. So yeah, it was the shame, and I guess that's for years, just because I thought that mental health was for the weak, and I didn't want to admit to myself that I was weak. And what I have found is that we're all weak. We're all made of the same stuff,
Yeah.
and we just need the wrong things to happen at the wrong time, and we're all susceptible. But I have found also the positive is by opening up and sharing my story over the last few years, written the book. In fact, I've got a second book. You may not have seen this. This was a thicker one.
It's got more in it. It's got more in it.
I have to say, it wasn't the Resilient People, as my good friend Dr. Andrea Pennington, I've co-authored with 20 other people. We've given a chapter each, and it's really interesting. Different experiences, different countries, different industries. But this thing about resilience, and resilience is a muscle. So we all have the ability to recover because of resilience. And some people just seem to be better at using that resilience muscle than others. But we all have that capacity to bounce back. And so I think that is a message I'd like to leave the viewers today, in 2020, as we all work through this uncharted territory and waters around the globe, and trying to deal with the concerns, the worries about the future, that all of us have that ability to bounce back and have that resilience. So I've got 2 plugs in for a book.
I will
managed to plug your services too.
You've got to get them in, Rob.
Not bad for a dyslexic.
I'm pretty impressed.
They hadn't invented dyslexia when I was young. It was only in later life I realised I couldn't read passages out in books very well, because I was reversing the letters, and I have a problem with numbers, which was a problem in banking because I reversed numbers.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I am interested in, I think will be very interesting at all. It wasn't until I went to a similar space myself I didn't realise, but I was quite judgmental with the likes of, say, Gary Speed, for taking his own life because of the impact that had on his close friends and family. But I realised then I didn't really fully understand that space, and I know that you've been there, Rob. And how would you describe that void? How do you justify feeling that way and being ready to take that action? Because there must be a part of you that knows, even in that desolate space, that it's going to have an impact on the people that you love the most. What goes through your head at that point?
You're right. And to a sense, it kept me going for 2 years. It was the impact on my children. I had 4 kids at the time. And I journalized that book, the Suicide to Success, was born out of the death diary that I kept, which was me journalizing my negative suicidal thoughts. And the recurrent thing, and I've still got that death diary, the recurrent thing was the impact on other people, particularly my children. And that kept me going for 2 years. The trouble is that my experience was that even that wasn't enough, because the pain and suffering inside of my head was so much, and got so much when I went out to Dubai in 2010. Even that, my relationship with my children and the impact it would have, even that wasn't enough to sustain me. So these thoughts are really powerful if you don't correct them. And I got to such a point where I was physically sick in the morning, most mornings, couldn't shake the suicidal thoughts. And I thought, do you know what? I'll go to the Burj Khalifa because I was living there, living in Dubai at the time, and I'll find a way out somehow and I'll jump. And it would only take me 13 seconds to drop a kilometer, and 13 seconds, and that pain would go away. Now, when I look back, I think of myself as having selfishly doing that, and I didn't feel selfish at the time. I just felt I had no way out. I had no solution. And were it not for a locked fire exit door at the Burj Khalifa, I wouldn't be talking to you today.
Well, it is a sort of double irony that I said when we first met there, Rob. I mean, first, what good would a fire exit at the top of the Burj Khalifa do anyway? But secondly, surely it's a health and safety risk having it padlocks closed.
I'm sure they had ladders. I hope the maintenance guy didn't get given the sack. Because that would be awful, that he lost his job. Yeah, I think the fire exit really, well, who knows? I mean, it's a really good question. I guess it's for the maintenance guys, isn't it? Washing windows. There's quite a few windows on the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a fire. It's okay, folks. We've got a fire exit here. Oh, great.
You won't be burnt to death.
Any helicopters? Spider-Man.
I bet no one's queried that in health and safety world. But you need to have them. You couldn't.
There'll be a lawsuit in there somewhere.
If there's any health and safety people listening, do let us know. Look, enjoy the time. On that very happy note and much laughter, look, it's been a pleasure just sharing some time with you, and hopefully the people listening and watching have taken some gems from our conversation between two mates.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure, Rob. And if it helps anyone else, then that's got to be a step in the right direction. And from a personal point of view, I'm glad they locked that fire exit. I don't know what intervention from the universe was involved in that part, but here you are. It's clearly meant to be. Maybe it was your little guardian angel that organised all of that.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. One of the mysteries of life. Adam, real pleasure.
Absolutely.
Take care, my friend.
Thanks very much.
Take care. Okay, we're done.
Well, thank you, mate. Yeah, ping that over to me.